acting representative for Ghana, the WHO. And it's also important for me to remind you that the last time I went to her Twitter handle, that will be about 2 days ago, she said she was proud to be part of a team who dedicated themselves to be able to put together a great documentary or insights, which so far has about 6,100 views on Twitter. And we're hoping that the UN will continue to do a lot of good. Now, Dr. Nima Kimambo, I give you the space.
Thank you very much, Roland. Honorable ministers, my colleague, Dr. Abebe, Assistant Director General for the FAO Regional Office for Africa, representatives of the CEO, Food and Drugs Authority for Ghana, development partners, representatives of various institutions within Ghana and from outside Ghana, media partners, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really pleased to be part of this event that is commemorating the World Food Safety Day under the theme, Food Safety, Everyone's Business. Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to be part of this event and share some remarks. I would like to commend the Food and Drugs Authority in Ghana and partners for organizing this event to mark this important day. Ladies and gentlemen, World Health Organization estimates that 600 million, almost 1 in 10 people in the world, fall ill, and 420,000 die every year from eating contaminated food. The African region has the highest burden, with more than 91 million people consuming food that renders them ill, and around 137,000 die every year. Food containing harmful bacteria, viruses, parasites, or chemical substances cause diseases ranging from acute diarrhea to lifelong conditions such as cancers. Although everyone is susceptible, infants, young children, pregnant women, older persons, and individuals who have weakened immune systems such as HIV, liver disease, or cancer are particularly vulnerable. The WHO estimates that 1/3 of all deaths from foodborne diseases globally are in children under the age of 5 years, despite the fact that they make up only 9% of the global population. In addition to ill health, its associated costs, there is an economic cost. Foodborne diseases impede socioeconomic development, straining healthcare systems and harming national economies, tourism, and trade. The World Bank estimates a 95.2 billion loss in economic productivity due to the impact of unsafe foods in low and middle income countries. Fortunately, most of this health burden and economic loss could be avoided with proper management of food products, and appropriate hygiene by producers and consumers. So the theme for the 2020 World Food Safety Day, which is food safety, everyone's business, is really to call on individuals, producers, governments, private sector to play our part in ensuring food safety, echoing the shared responsibility in assuring food safety along the food chain. This year's commemoration of World Food Safety amidst the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic also drives home another important message, that health of people is connected to health of animals and environment. Therefore, the importance of the One Health approach. Pathogens transmissible from animals to humans through direct contact or through food, water, and environment have impacts on public health and socioeconomic well-being. WHO has been supporting countries in Africa in the past few years to strengthen laboratory-based food-based surveillance and building capacities to prevent, detect, and respond to food safety emergencies. This has included, in collaboration with the FAO, the strengthening of national networks and participation in the International Food Safety Authorities Network, which we call in short InfoSan. And Ghana has benefited from this. Last year, WHO and FAO supported the training of key food safety stakeholders in establishing a national food safety alert system and InfoSan. Ghana was also supported to develop national food safety emergency response plan to ensure adequate preparation, planning, and response in the event of foodborne outbreaks. WHO also works with countries to target food safety health promotion initiatives to promote food hygiene in different settings, such as schools and food markets, and for infant and young child feeding practices. As we commemorate World Food Safety Day, I call upon all relevant stakeholders and agencies to prioritize food safety, align policies in agriculture, trade, health, education, social protection, and mobilize adequate financial resources to make food safe for all. Setting food safety guidelines in line with the Codex standards, operating national, regional alert systems and early warning systems, as well as building and maintaining adequate food systems and infrastructure will enormously contribute towards improving food safety. In conclusion, I want to leave you with WHO and FAO's 5 steps to make a sustained difference to food safety. 1, ensure it's safe. Governments must ensure safe and nutritious foods for all. 2, grow it safe. Agriculture and food producers need to adopt all the good practices. 3, keep it safe. Business operators must make sure food is safe. 4, eat it safe. All consumers have a right to eat safe, healthy, and nutritious foods. And 5, team up for safety. Food safety is a shared responsibility. Food safety is everyone's business. Thank you for your kind attention.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kimumbo. And it's important that we have to acknowledge the enormous role that all of you are playing in this, particularly when we also do know that you are indeed part of the solution because of your role and the effort that you're making right here in Ghana as part of a team that is coordinating all this. And again, we don't have to forget the important points that you have made today about the training that is usually given because of the support from the WHO, not only for testing, but also for giving the right sort of technical support. But it's also important that we have to take the 5 key points that the WHO is hammering on, which is ensuring that if it's food, we ensure that it's safe. We have to also ensure that overall we grow safe food in our environment, we keep it safe, we eat it safe, and team up as not only countries, but individuals, societies, and communities for safety, to have good food to eat. And that is where we have to transition and bring you our next speaker. And Ms. Alicia De Caterina is a Deputy Country Director of the World Food Programme. And I would want, because of time, call you in and give you the time quickly for you to make your remark, please.
Thank you very much, Roland. Honorable Ministers, Abebe, the Assistant DG for Africa of FAO, Deputy CEO of the FDA and FDA representative, development partners, representatives of various organizations and actors along the value chain. As we know, while food is a basic necessity of life, its consumption presents challenges to our health if foodborne hazards are not checked at all levels of the supply chain. These physical, chemical, and biological hazards may be inherent in raw foods, or they may be introduced as food moves through the value chain to the consumer. The World Food Programme's work which uses food to save and change the lives of the most vulnerable, commits us to use the best food standards and guidelines developed by the UN, FAO, and WHO. Over the years, WFP has built a team of food safety professionals at the global, regional, and country levels to ensure we provide safe food for nearly 100 million people in more than 80 countries. In Ghana, we are supporting the efforts of 2 established local industrial food processors who provide FDA-approved, fortified cereal-based foods to thousands of vulnerable pregnant and nursing mothers, adolescent girls and children between the ages of 6 to 23 months to help reduce stunting in parts of northern Ghana and the Ashanti region. We provide regular food technology support in greenfield factory constructions and installations, product development, food safety, and food quality. In addition to the provision of locally produced specialized nutritious foods, WFP, in partnership with the Ghana Health Service, also delivers key information on health and nutrition to vulnerable people using various social and behavioral change communication channels, helping the people we serve to make healthy, safe, and nutritious food choices. We also work with the FDA, that's the Food and Drugs Authority of Ghana, to improve food safety among the network of food processors and retail outlets in the Ashanti region and northern Ghana. To date, FDA has conducted food safety assessments and made recommendations for 38 retail outlets to improve storage and handling of food items. Today, global food systems, as we know, faces a new challenge, the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, while the pandemic is not per se a foodborne hazard, our partnering industrial food processors in Ghana have been providing us with updates of the challenges they are encountering. Similar to what others must be facing, they had to make drastic changes, often at significant expense, in order to continue to deliver safe food while ensuring the safety of personnel. For example, the provision of Veronica buckets at entrances, nose masks, hand sanitizers, and buses to convey workers during the lockdown period have created additional costs, while a reduction in labor force resulting from the social distancing has impacted on the production levels. Decline in their revenues has also been caused by a reduction in demand of some of their products supplied to hospitality-related industries such as breweries. In short, it's been tough. We are still not yet out of the woods, but there is no shortcut to food safety. And as FAO says, there is no food security without food safety. And so even under these difficult circumstances, food safety is paramount. And actually, it is even more important now in order to prevent illness, which affects our immunity. As we celebrate the second World Food Safety Day amidst these challenging times, our appreciation goes to everyone along the value chain, the food value chain, who is helping to make sure consumers get safe, quality, wholesome, nutritious food. Thank you. And we thank our farmers, aggregators, processors, transporters, retailers, market women, buyers, and cooks. Indeed, food safety continues to be everyone's business. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. And we indeed have to acknowledge your enormous efforts. I remember towards the end of last year, you had an interaction with the Deputy Upper East Regional Minister of Ghana, Frank Fuseni Adongo, who appealed to your good office to increase support for the Ghana school feeding program in order to enroll more children from deprived communities right here in Ghana. It's also important for us to state that the good work you're doing is also because the UN as a body in itself wants to ensure that growth of populations are in sync with their ability to be able to contribute significantly, not only to national development, but also the world's development. And it's important that we have to again, acknowledge the good work that yourself, Dr. Baby, as well as the rest of the team right here in Ghana are also doing. Dr. Marcus Lip in Italy also helping, and Dr. Nima also helping us with all the good things that you're doing. Having joined us is Dr. Bernardo Koboy. He's Deputy Health Minister for Ghana. And if he's here, can I hear hello from him? Dr. Koboy, have you joined us? Please unmute.
Yeah, Roland, I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. You're in your office, but you're wearing a mask. So I was wondering whether you have crowds around you since
yeah. So actually, you know, once I set out to work, I make sure I put on my mask so that I'm compliant always. And if I find myself alone or with one or two people in an office like now, then the mask can come down, but it has to be around my neck so it can easily go up. Yeah, I hope you can hear me. Should I make it?
Oh, yes, we can hear you. I think Roland is muted.
All right.
Okay. Can you all hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So, Dr. Koboy, please mute your sound. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So now we had wanted to be joined by the Chief Executive for the Food and Drugs Authority of Ghana, but no problem. She has given us a good deputy, the Deputy Chief Executive in charge of the Drug Division for Ghana's Food and Drugs Authority. Mr. Seth Kweku-Senake is going to give us a message on behalf of the Food and Drugs Authority right here in Ghana. Can I have you, Mr. Senake, go ahead?
Thank you very much, Roland. Good morning and bonjour tout le monde. Roland, you have said it already. This speech is the speech written by the Chief Executive Officer of Food and Drugs Authority. She extends a sincere apology that just this morning she has been called for another equally important meeting. So I'll go ahead and read the speech of the Chief Executive Officer of the Food and Drugs Authority. Honorable Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, Dr. Baby Hill Gabriel, Assistant Director General, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations Regional Office for Africa, Dr. Nima Kimambo, WHO Country Representative for Ghana, Ms. Alicia De Caterina, Deputy Country Director, World Food Program, Chief Directors and Executive Directors, distinguished guests, the press, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Food and Drugs Authority, I wish to welcome you all to this first ever video conference in commemoration of the second World Food Safety Day on the theme, Food Safety, Everyone's Business. In a world where unsafe food accounts for 600 million morbidity and 420,000 mortality every year, according to the World Health Organization statistics, there is the urgent need for action if the Sustainable Development Goal 3, that is, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages, is to be achieved. Access to sufficient amount of safe and nutritious food is key to sustaining life and promoting good health. The commemoration in Ghana is focusing on food safety in our business environment during this COVID-19 period. It is imperative to ensure food safety in order to prevent foodborne illnesses while building and maintaining the body's immune system to fight COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in food supply chains being disrupted, with some products, ingredients, or materials being unavailable or in short supply. In the rush to identify new suppliers, food businesses may focus less attention on the integrity of the supply chain, thereby compromising on food safety and food fraud. In this respect, every stakeholder along the food chain in Ghana has a key role to play towards achieving the ultimate goal of food safety and sustainability. Every stakeholder institution must also be committed to implementing policies and legislation that supports sustainable food systems as we look to the future. It is vital that we continue to strengthen food control systems. One particular area that we have to prioritize is food waste due to poor storage practices and sanitation in our markets. The Food and Drugs Authority, on its part, has reviewed its operations to reduce the negative impact of COVID-19 on business while still ensuring the safety of the food supply chain. The Food and Drugs Authority is therefore working with the food industry to ensure the prevention and spread of COVID-19 in order to forestall any potential food safety and nutritional challenges that may arise. Continuous education and food safety awareness is ongoing via our social media handles to equip everyone in making informed choices while improving their health via the consumption of safe food. Fast-track registration of hand sanitizers and face masks has also been introduced in the effort to ensure their availability to all Ghanaians. On this auspicious day, we, the stakeholders, have gathered via this video conference to discuss food safety situation in our business environment during this COVID-19 pandemic. Let us deliberate and come out with recommendations that are practical and implementable. I am looking forward to the outcomes of the discussions that should help us develop a long-term action plan to address food safety issues, especially in improving sanitation in our markets. I hope we all get involved in the discussion, and I look forward to hearing your views on how we can best work together in pursuit of our shared goals in the face of emerging food safety challenges, especially in these times. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Well, I'll say thank you very much, Mr. Seth Senaki, representing Ghana's Chief Executive for the Food and Drugs Authority. And it is important for all of us to put into perspective the various roles that need to be played by various institutions right here in our country and the respective countries that we represent right here in Africa, and especially the various leading officers of the UN body generally responsible for making sure the health and the food and the health of that food that we consume is also in a better nutritional state to benefit everybody. It's from here that we have to take a statement from two of our ministers right here in Ghana. And Dr. Jele Noura is a Minister of State in charge of Agriculture, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture of Ghana. Please, if you're here, I would want to have a statement from you. If it's the shorts are the better for all of us.
Thank you. Representatives of the UN bodies in Ghana, the Deputy Minister in charge of Health, the Deputy CEO, Food and Drugs Authority, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, the transition to a zero hunger world and a food secure Africa will require a revolution as much in food quality as in quantity. About 137,000 people die of foodborne diseases every year in Africa. Though evidence on the extent and burden of foodborne diseases in low-income countries is still limited, the WHO estimates that the global burden of foodborne diseases is comparable to that of malaria, HIV/AIDS, or tuberculosis. It is sad that aflatoxins, these are natural poisons produced when certain mold species grows in foods such as maize and peanuts, are present in 40% of commodities in Africa and tend to exist throughout the value chain. They contribute to liver cancer. In recent times, we have changed our diets and eating patterns as a result of globalization, urbanization, and income growth in ways that offer new avenues for foodborne diseases. The consumption of animal source foods, which are high in nutrients but also carry disease risk, is rising. There is the culture of eating out, with street food vendors dominating the food system, yet in the way of very little in the way of effective food safety regulation of these vendors. A combination of unhealthy diets and sedentary lifestyles has sent obesity rates soaring, not only in developed countries, but also in low-income countries like ours, where hunger and obesity comfortably coexist. In recent times, unhealthy diet is one of the leading causes of death across the globe and also in Ghana from non-communicable diseases, including cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and certain cancers. The restrictions which Ghana and many other countries have brought into place to manage the spread of COVID-19 have in turn severely impacted the food industry. Consumer buying patterns have changed, resulting in panic buying, testing the ability of some food chains to respond. Whilst on the other hand, closures of food service outlets and non-food retail has resulted in loss of markets for others. The changes which we have had to make do with, however, introduce new challenges to the way that we manage food safety as we come to terms with potential disruption to supply chains, staff absenteeism, and an influx of new temporal workers to the food industry. Ladies and gentlemen, amid the many challenges, the COVID-19 comorbidities offers an opportunity to strengthen our food safety systems. COVID-19 comorbidities include non-communicable diseases such as diabetes that are associated with poor diets. There is now a heightened level of public and policy concern over health and food safety, and the government's pandemic recovery package includes policy changes in agriculture and agricultural markets that will lead to considerable capacity expansion for managing food safety. In Ghana, food that poses health risks is sold in informal markets, including street food enterprises. There are millions of such enterprises, and they are the part of the food system most adversely affected by COVID-19, and where management of food safety is most difficult. The biggest problem still remains how to guarantee food safety in these traditional food markets. With no known cure for the coronavirus disease, a wholesome diet with nutritious food, particularly vegetables, has become key to the fight against the coronavirus disease. It is unfortunate to note, however, that people start to worry about nutrition only when they start feeling sick or after being diagnosed with diabetes or other illnesses. But change in attitudes would only happen through promoting greater awareness on the need for nutritious foods by going from village to village to help educate people. It is important and imperative that government departments and NGOs should work together on nutrition and agree on minimum actions at the community level. In the food production sector, for example, there is an urgent need for the regulation of chemical misuse so as to avoid food contamination. There is also the need to boost the seed sector in African countries and to emphasize the importance of breeding for quality nutrition in staple food crops. It is important for breeders to put nutrition at par with breeding for disease resistance or drought tolerance. This should be a requirement of national breeding stations. For many businesses, working from home, teleworking, and online or internet discussions and meetings are now normal practices under COVID-19. Food industry personnel, however, do not have the opportunity to work from home and are required to continue to work in their usual workplaces. Keeping all workers in the food production and supply chains healthy and safe is critical to surviving the current pandemic. There is now an urgent requirement for the food industry to ensure compliance with measures to protect food workers from contracting COVID-19, to prevent exposure to or transmission of the virus, and to strengthen food hygiene and sanitation. To conclude, I say it is imperative to reinforce personal hygiene measures and provide refresher training on food hygiene principles to eliminate or reduce the risk of food surface food surfaces, and food packaging materials becoming contaminated with the virus from food workers. Personal protective equipment, such as masks and gloves, can be effective in reducing the spread of viruses and diseases within the food industry, but only if used properly. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nura. And we're hoping that since you're also a political appointee and a political head, the related issues of how we enforce hygiene, related issues of how communities also get involved, all of us will play a critical role, because the communities, if they are left in themselves, based on my practice as a marketing communication consultant, a journalist having practiced for close to 20 years, shows that in Africa, particularly Ghana, you leave communities alone without enforcement, and then the needed behavioral change, nothing ever happens or gets done. Oh, thank you again, Dr. Nura. And let's take this short one also for the Minister of Health representative, the Deputy Minister of the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Bernard Okoboy. He also is a member of Parliament, so he's well placed, having practiced as a medical doctor since he was inducted. Please, Dr. Okoboy, you just unmute your sound and go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Roland, and good morning to all my colleagues and our friends on this particular conference. Let me start by mentioning that my boss, the Honorable Minister for Health, Honorable Kukwa Jumamenu, had to run into an equally important meeting at the Jubilee House this morning, and so he asked me to step in his shoes. And I'm glad to be part of this program. And let me start by acknowledging the presence of my colleague minister who just spoke, to all the heads or reps of our partners, as well as Deputy CEO, FDA, and all other protocols. I'm excited to be here for one good reason. Largely, we are what we eat. In fact, health, more or less, it's a reflection of what has gone into your body over the years. And as a physician, let me say that I've come to the place where I consider foods to be as important as medicines that people pay to get. Sometimes people overlook the importance of food and are willing to spend a lot to buy a drug and wouldn't really bother to get the nutritious food. And the education is important so that people understand that food safety is very important. I am also very impressed with the theme for this year, very apt, that food safety is everyone's business. And it is my hope that at the end of this commemoration or celebration, the message will go out there that we all got to be involved, especially in our children. Their cognitive capacity, the ability to think, the ability to build that capacity that would follow them for their years depends largely on the quality of foods they take, and our children are our future. And so on such a day, we should actually remember that it is really our business, because our future depends on the safety and quality of food that we have in our population. And it is because we appreciate the importance of food safety. That's why over these few years, the government has taken steps to actually transmogrify the Food and Drug Authority from a board, it was just a Food and Drugs Board, to an authority with the powers to ensure that we don't only preach food safety, but we ensure compliance when it comes to existing legislation and regulations. And I'm happy that the Deputy CEO of the FDA mentioned some of the activities that they are undertaking to ensure food safety. The government is very committed to making sure that we support them to ensure that the food that should provide support and strength to our bodies don't end up being toxins that will rather derail the efforts at ensuring good health and well-being, SDG 3. Let me quickly conclude by saying that in such an era where we are dealing with a virus, a SARS-CoV-2 virus, which has taught us, so far the knowledge from a study of the virus has taught us that we don't have strictly an antiviral agent that is specifically efficacious towards SARS-CoV-2. Most of the things we are applying now are supportive medications. Even remdesivir has shown some level of help, but we all know that it is not absolute in terms of providing treatment to SARS-CoV-2. What is refreshing is that largely, almost all the recoveries we've had more or less survived on their immune system, which largely also depends on the quality of food intake over the years. And when you are dealing with a virus that would be overcome or can be defeated based on the strength of your human immune system, it is important to stress the safety of our foods, how it contributes to this immune system that we are talking about. And so with COVID-19, food safety has even become more important. And we have a duty to ensure that people eat healthy, nutritious, and safe food so that we are better positioned to fight the virus. In one of the addresses to the nation, His Excellency the President, President Akufo-Addo mentioned very aptly that we know how to revive an economy that is on a downward trend as a result of the economic impact of COVID-19. What we don't know how to do is to bring dead people back to life. And that is why we must even be more interested in this food safety commemoration and the steps we'll take.
Things come about. Now, we're already 30 minutes late. We're exactly 11 a.m. here. I'm sure if you're in Amsterdam or somewhere, your time will change depending on the 2 hours or an hour or two. Eastern African time it is also. So quickly we have to transition to the panel discussion. I have 5 minutes each for each speaker. If you can make it 4, that would be good. If you decide to make it 5, 6, I won't complain, but let's not exceed 5. And I see Mrs. Messi laughing and Dr. Lip also smiling as well. Ms. Paulina, thank you for joining me as well, and the rest of the team. Now, we're going to have first speaking Dr. Mr. Kweku Kwanza, Deputy Director, Environmental Health and Sanitation Directorate of the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources. We'll follow it with Mrs. Paulina Adi, Director, Women in Agriculture Development, the Food and Agriculture Ministry of Ghana. Kofi Esil is with the Food and Drugs Authority. I'm very familiar with him, so that'll be good. And then we have Honorable Messina Afrowa Nijan, President, Greater Accra Market Women Association. Is she here? Okay, and then Dr. Maritim will join us, and Dr. Marcus Lip is the last person. In order for us to give a lot of time to Dr. Marcus Lip, who was the first or initial batch of first persons to join, let's make our time shorter. Now, please, I have Mr. Kweku Kwanza, Deputy Director, Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resource. Please, your 5 minutes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, moderator. I think if you're looking at food safety being everybody's business, and I think I want to focus on our markets and the overcrowding and the sanitation situation in our markets. And if you are familiar with some of the markets in Ghana, the conditions there are very appalling. There's overcrowding, there's poor sanitation, there's issue of poor wastewater management, lack of even washrooms, and rodent infestation, and even poor layout. And within the context of COVID-19, we took advantage of the situation led by Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, NADMO, and with support from the Ghana Armed Forces, did extensive disinfection of all our major markets. We have about 722 markets, and they were very extensive. And as a result, the market queens were able to support us to shut down these markets, in some cases 1 day or 2 days, to do this thorough job. Afterwards, it was cleaned, and market women were asked to come back. Hand washing facilities were installed at the entrance and within the markets, and also sensitized market women, once again led by our market queens. They did wonderful work by helping us to enforce the wearing of a face mask and also looking at social distancing. In some cases, they have to do shift systems where they were grouped into 2 or 3 groups, and some will come day 1, and then another group will come day 2, just to help in spacing out. And it was not all that rosary. In some cases, some even flouted the social distancing protocols, and the district assemblies were forced to close down some markets. And for me, that's a very, very important point that we have to take. But largely, the market women and the market queens were able to really lead the efforts and make sure things worked out well. What I want to add is that there were constant, even if you go to our major markets now, there are constant notices and announcements, spot announcements that will continue reminding both sellers and buyers to continue responding to social distancing protocol. And I think it's something that Ghana did well. Going forward, if you really want to sustain this, then it's critical for us to look at issue of even supporting with some capacity for the market women and the enforcers. Here I'm talking about Food and Drugs Authority and the assemblies led by the environmental health officers to continue building their capacity to ensure that these protocols are observed. We got to do promotion among the market women. There are a lot of community radio stations within the markets. We can take advantage of that to reach out to the majority of the market women. There is the issue of strengthening collaboration. There's the need for us to continue working together as we've been able to do all these years between Food and Drugs, between Ministry of Local Government and the downstream staff in the assemblies. It's critical for us to continue working. And most importantly, like Roland, you raised, it's about enforcement. You have to continue enforcing the laws and make sure that at least it serves as a deterrent for those who don't want to obey the social distancing protocol. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you too. And I initially had some house rules. I'd wanted all of you to finish the summaries in 5 minutes, and then we ask questions. But I want to ask, since this is not a dictatorship, it is a democracy, which do we prefer?
Roland, this is Marcus. So from my perspective, you can set the tone and the pace
Okay.
and the structure.
All right. So I ask a question, and then I'll get one more question from any of you, because that is for clarification. But I would want to ask you, Mr. Kwanzaa, with the role that you undertaking, how do you intend improving on the subject of overcrowding and sanitation being one of the related concerns? How is the situation now during the COVID, and how is your outfit going to manage all these? Because Ghana is a big problem.
Thank you, Roland. Basically, within the COVID, because of the restrictions at the initial part of the COVID, we were able to have lesser people visiting the markets, and it was easier to enforce the social.
Am I the only one who seems to think he has a break?
No.
It's a break. Okay, he has a break in his internet. Okay, I'd wanted to invite one question from any of us, but I will have to go to the next speaker, and our next speaker is Mrs. Paulinadi, Director, Women in Agriculture Development, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Since we can't hear from Mr. Kukukansa. So Mrs. Paulinade, can you just go on? I give you 5 minutes. We'll have a question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let me have your question and I proceed.
Please proceed. Then I have your, then we'll give you a question.
Okay. Yes, from the Women in Agricultural Development Directorate of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, our focus is on nutrition, food safety, but food safety looking at the markets and agro-processing sites. And then we have value addition to agricultural produce, and overall we have gender. We have operated well at national level, and we have staff at the regional level, and then also at the district level. But at the national level, we don't go down to do what I would call extension work. So we depend on our regional and district staff who belong to the metros, municipal and district assemblies, but we have a link. And we have a lot of women who are at the urban centers, and that is where we have our big markets. And since we don't have a lot of agricultural activities at these locations, they do a lot of what we call market extension, and it is focused on food safety. We've done a lot of work. And then during the COVID, we had to undertake a market surveillance, looking at a whole bouquet of things, prices, safety, and so on. And we realized also that because of the scare, most of our staff were not at work. But now with the clarity and the realization of the restrictions, they have resumed and are working. We realized also that we do the training, but there are things which were, of course, beyond us. And some even required changes in infrastructure, etc. So we had to link up with the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. And what did we do? We decided to review the guidelines on food safety for the markets and other locations. This was going on, and then for a greater part of this year, we've not been able to do much. That was when the COVID came. But now consultations have resumed, and we'll have to be quick. I would also want to say that the COVID has presented some opportunities, because there are guidelines for the COVID, which we could incorporate into this guidelines we are preparing to support operations at the market as far as food safety is concerned. So very soon, I think letters, invitations have gone out to various agencies for us to resume work. We will do our routine education on handling, etc. But you need to have a guideline or a code in order to enforce some strict measures as far as handling food is concerned at our markets. So this is what I would want to say in brief. Thank you very much. Hello.
I think this is very instructive. And I wanted to ask a question about whether your outfit is working with market women to improve safety. You've well elaborated on that aspect, but I would want to give the opportunity to all of us, because we're familiar, especially those familiar with the African terrain, to ask a question. And then if it's answered shortly, I could allow another on her presentation, because markets sometimes in Ghana are not in the best of the conditions, and they affect the health of food that is consumed. So any question from any of us? One, and then we'll move on. Who wants to ask a question, please? Okay, so if no question is coming in, but since I'm familiar with the markets, Mrs. Paulinadi, how do you encourage the market women to look at phytosanitary issues, because even though it's more of the farm gate related issue, it affects the way final consumption is undertaken, or even if it's a regulatory issue.
All right, thank you very much. What we have done for the phytosanitaries, it falls in the seat of the Plant Protection and Regulatory Services, yes. But what we do is working a lot with those are the urban and peri-urban agricultural points within most of the urban centers. We know there are big issues there. And for most of the vegetables that are minimally processed, we have to make sure there's cleaning stepwise all the way down until the consumer picks it up. We have done a lot of training for our market leaders. And I can cite an example. We showed some photos and we didn't disclose the source, but it was like, how can tomatoes be displayed close to refuse that have been taken out of the drain, you know? And then when we mentioned it was right here in Accra, they were amazed. But we did a few follow-ups and you'd find purchases being done and then it's going straight into the bowl for hot pepper for a product like Kenki. And you can imagine what follows. So we've done a lot of training for these women. Another one is a carrot. When you look at the water that is used to wash it at the market, it is not done with running water, but they have a bowl and then it is done from stage 1 to, let's say, stage 3. But even the last stage, you don't find the water so clean. Somebody buys and it's already gnawing at the carrot. So these are the points we pick and then we educate them on. Because for the microbial, you can die very, very fast. But for the chemical, it will be in your system and it will take some time before it manifests. So we've done training along this line. These are just examples I wanted to cite. Thank you. I can't hear you. Roland, your mic.
Please, any of the panelists want to ask a question, maybe related to their experiences with countries they've practiced in? But if not, then let's invite Mr. Ebenezer Kofieso, the head of the division when it comes to Food and Drugs Authority, Ghana. Mr. Eso, I can see you smiling. Please unmute because you are speaking on the impact of COVID on the regulation of food in Ghana. Please unmute and you can go ahead. Unmute. Press your button if you're using the laptop down.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Eso.
Thank you very much, Roland, for having me. And let me say a very good morning to all participants, especially our honorable ministers and officials from the UN. I'm speaking on the subject, the impact of COVID-19 on the regulation of food in Ghana. I believe we all aware of the fact that COVID-19 has virtually affected every human activity, and then the impact on the socioeconomic activities of everyone, including industries, have been very grave. And then we anticipate that the impact may linger on a bit longer than anticipated. And so the protocols recommended for the prevention of the infection with COVID-19 has itself put a strain on major statutory activities, including food regulation across the food supply spectrum worldwide. And we'll expect that at this point in time, most regulatory agencies or national food regulatory agencies will have as their number one goal measures that will ensure the continuous supply of safe and nutritious food, knowing very well that safe and nutritious food in itself is essential in fighting the pandemic. And so concerns about these infections and its impact on regulatory officials, if they become exposed, has itself impacted on the work that most regulatory agencies do. And this has affected activities such as inspections, either local inspections or foreign inspections, market surveillance, import control activities, and laboratory testing. And it's all as a result of reduced manpower and other logistical support that lead to suspension of some, that has led to the suspension of some of these regulatory activities. We know that the impact of reduced regulatory activities or its absence during this period could potentially put some consumer safety at risk. This includes increased risks of food fraud, because we are aware that anytime regulatory activities are delayed or slowed down, food fraudsters take advantage of this. There could also be an increased risk of compromised hygiene practices at the food processing facilities or food service facilities, leading to food contamination, increased risk of unwholesome food sold to unsuspecting consumers, delayed in investigations of food complaints, again as a result of the reduced manpower. And this in itself could affect market authorization and then trade facilitation, which serves as, or which it's one of the major activities of the authority, giving market authorization to food and then facilitating trade. And so as the Food and Drugs Authority, what challenges do we anticipate, or what challenges are we confronted with? And this includes how we can continually assure public health and safety. And that is why this particular program is very important for us to let our counterparts and our stakeholders know exactly what we are doing. And we are doing this without exposing our staff to infection, the challenge of continually assuring food safety and public health, without letting down our guards to allow food fraudsters to have a field day, without compromising safe food handling practices, without injuring the trust that the public have in us as far as our food supply system is concerned. And what we need to do as FDA to facilitate trade during the period, and then what we have to do as a regulatory agency to promote food safety. We've always asked the question how COVID-19 and food safety are related, but it turns out that there is some correlation. And I'll give a typical example of a situation where COVID-19 infection occurs in a food facility, a food processing facility. In your screen, which is being shared, we've seen sources of infection that could come from the factory workers themselves, government workers who visit them, contractors who come to work for these factories, consumers or customers, including incoming packages. Now, when the infection occurs, one of the protocols is to shut down the operations and then do the necessary testing and all that. When this happens, this sets in food shortages. Now, when food shortages set in, it has been shown that people become more reckless in the selection of food. And once you become reckless with food selection, then food safety issues become escalated, as well as malnutrition among vulnerable groups, which has been alluded to. And all these can also lead to hikes in food prices. So you see hikes in food prices, making people become more reckless. They buy anything that is affordable to them, and then they also don't get what to eat properly that will ensure nutrition. So the cycle goes on and on. It's all because of an infection that occurred in the food plant. And so as the food and authorities, we adopted 10 strategies and innovations that can help us address these challenges. And the first among the list that I want to mention is the review of existing regulatory framework, which we situated in the context of the pandemic. And we were guided by the recommended protocols for fighting the COVID-19. We also assessed the national food safety situation in the light of regulatory penetration along the food supply chain, and identify the weak links, look at how those links can be strengthened, consider new collaborations that need to be established, including laboratory testing facility, the possibility of even using satellite or private inspection entities that can do some work on behalf of the authority. Consider which logistical support that may be required to achieve these objectives. The third thing we did was to consider the use of technologies in the execution of some of the regulatory functions that we carried out. Put together a comprehensive data on food businesses to facilitate risk categorization of this operation. And by risk profiling, we were able to realign our attention to operations that we classify as medium to high risk so that we can relieve other resources to do other things. We also managed to ease some regulatory bureaucracies and administrative bottlenecks, which do not necessarily enhance public health, but rather discourages self-compliance. You want to encourage self-compliance so that people can come to you and then help them or guide them to do the right thing. And so everything that we consider administrative bottlenecks, we needed to ease them. We also providing guidance to the food industry towards the implementation of food safety management systems that are based on the principles of HACCP. And then the seventh activity that we carried out to address the challenge is the support that we are giving to the industry so that they become increasingly self-regulating. The eighth thing that we did was the intensification of media interactions, including public education on food safety and consumer awareness, using traditional but largely social media. And then the ninth thing was the consciousness of efforts to deal swiftly with issues of regulatory infractions, because we needed to put out what we call the positive fear among consumers and among the public, for them to know that the FDA is still in control, so that people will know that COVID-19 has not taken away our powers. And then finally, what we have intensified is management showing of high level of competence, commitment and leadership in this challenging time to overcome these challenges that we have mentioned above and the threat that it presents to the food control system. And so largely, the FDA as an institution has managed to reassess its operations in terms of food control in the wake of the COVID-19, and then sent out the necessary signals to the industry and the public so that people will still have some sureties as far as the safety of food is concerned. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Mr. Essel. It's important that we reiterated the role that your organization plays here in Ghana, and the media intensification efforts we can all see. Again, it's the enforcement, because people's behavior becomes an integral part of any developmental change. There's a question I want to pose to you, and I'll give you 2 minutes to answer it. Most of your activities involve physical interactions, sampling to ensure you have the right tests. Now, during the lockdown to the post-lockdown period, how have you been doing this, and has it been effective enough within this period? Just for a minute or two.
Well, thank you very much, Roland. You did hear me mention the fact that we try to deploy technologies these days in view of the fact that we will not be able to do physical inspections. In fact, Ghana is not the only country that is trying this. We have it in Europe and other places. You recall we do foreign inspections and all that. Now there are travel bans and what have you. So how do we carry out such inspections? So technologies allow us to view areas and operations that we want to look at. And then some of these physical inspections will involve review of documents. We can have these documents sent to us electronically and then have them checked and all that. And there are other protocols, including sampling of products and testing them in our laboratories, and increasing the frequency of testing in itself will let you know that there is some consistency with the particular product that you are interested in. And so we are using these technologies. There are areas where we ask people to, we use videos to show activity that is being carried out and all that. It is a challenge, and it's something that we are doing for the first time. And so its validation in itself presents some challenges to us, but we need to live with it and then make sure that we keep our eyes on the block. At the end of the day, it is not only the presence, your physical presence there. The sampling and testing activities are all part of the protocols that we employ. Okay, and once we have these facilities, especially those that are here, where we can visit, we can maintain the social distance and also see what we want to see, even though you will not go there with the numbers that usually go to such facilities with. And so some work is being done. It is not actually hampered our operations. We are very much on top of the issues.
All right. Now, integral to all this are the market women. They are very important to all this that we do. We have the president of the Greater Accra Markets Association, and Madam Messina Afro-Wanijan. I can see you there. Please just give us 4 to 5 minutes presentation. We have a question to ask you. Just tell us the challenges encountered by traders in markets during the period.
Thank you very much. And my regards to all the panelists. I think it's a great opportunity that the markets and their representatives have been included in this discussion. I've heard a lot from the ministers and the other speakers. But what can I say is, before the virus, there were some problems in the market. As they were saying, some of our structures are so old, more than 50, 60 years ago, and the spaces are so small, sometimes you find it very difficult. So we have problems on the ground before the virus. But the virus came in to make it worse, because this is the time the virus is in, and we have been asked for spacing in the market. Already the people have their spaces and they are doing their business. So it wasn't easy just allowing them, some to stay in the house, some to come morning, afternoon, but because of the virus, we are trying as much as possible to do exactly what is needed. We are very much aware that we are at the front line of sending the food to the customers. So if the consumers get bad food, it means the whole country will get bad food. So what we usually do is we try as much as possible. I think so many seminars, workshops to be educated on what to do. So whatever we learn, we bring it to the market. Whatever we are told to do, we try as much as possible for the sake of ourselves and the consumers. Presently, the president advised us to put on our nose masks, hand washing, sanitizing, and we are strictly doing it. But unfortunately, some of the issues are very dicey. We find it's very difficult to comply. Now, as we get to the market, we work hand in hand with the authorities. So we usually allow them to come to the market free to discuss whatever they have to ask. Then after that, we also communicate to our members. And as we are in the market now, the problem that is now arising is those who come to the market, and when they want to buy, they will be weighing the item, throwing it up and down, selecting the item from table to table. So what we are doing now as market women is also to advise them that when you come, either you use a stick or a pointer to point exactly what you want. And if you point that, the market woman will be able to serve you. And after the service, we advise them, wash your hands. If there is no water, use the hand sanitizer, because we do a lot of touching of money. And we understand the virus can be transmitted, especially through exchange of money. So this is what we are doing, that if you finish, if you can't get soap and water, use hand sanitizer to wash your hands. Now, we also know that now they are opening the lockdown, so our life are in our own hands. If we risk it on our own self. And also, if we don't participate and ensure that sanitary and safety is in the market, it means we risk our own life. Because it will happen to you if you do the trading, you get all the money and you lose your life. Now we have to make sure that the market is safe, the market is clean, and we have to make sure that we don't get closer to each other. And that is one of our major problems. Because if the customers are coming in and they come in their numbers, we find it very difficult to control them. But presently, we are just talking, there's a lot of adverts in the radio, TV, and we are just abiding by those things. So we know that at least presently the situation is better. It's better than formerly. So this is what is happening.
Okay, can I have you wrap up? If you've ended, have you ended, Madam?
Oh, thank you very much. So what all that I will say is, we are aware of the virus. We are aware of the facilities in the market. We are aware about our environment and the cleanliness, and we'll make sure we team up with the authorities to make everything safe for the world to enjoy.
Well, thank you. I'll defer any question for now. Let me quickly just take my last two speakers. Dr. Kimutai Maritim is coordinator in Nairobi, Kenya for CC Africa. And please let me have you for 5 minutes. And you're speaking on the impact of COVID-19 on the participation of African countries in activities of the standard setting bodies, its impact and opportunities for intra-Africa trade. Please let me have you.
Thank you, Ronald. I think I'm also happy to participate in this World Food Safety Day. And literally that we are actually in a very unique time. First and foremost, I wish just to say, pass my greetings to the ministers who actually spared the busy schedule to join us in this celebration. And I think that one is a big applaud. I've seen Marcus. So as a case at hand for our case now is that I would imagine many of you, much as you are talking, except I've seen in Ghana, people are in the offices. At all over, I think people are still working from home. So we are still teleworking. You have seen the new uniform where everybody is putting on mask. So we have a new uniform in the world. So we have really restructured our way of behavior. Governments have blocked down their borders. They have travel restrictions. And many countries cannot, even if we are to allow any meeting, people will not be able to travel. And closer home, I think in Africa here, now you cannot greet anybody. You cannot greet people now because of, I don't know whether you are getting me. It looks like I lost my video.
Yeah, that's okay. We're still getting you. There was a break.
Okay.
It's normal in African countries to have breaks. Don't worry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying is that the new way of behavior is that it's a culture shock for us because all of a sudden we cannot shake hands because of this pandemic. So having said that, we have actually restructured not only the way of working here locally, but even in the Codex perspective. In May this year, I think the Codex Executive Committee met and they held a virtual meeting that provided some timely opportunity to reflect on the impact of this current pandemic on the work of Codex and some of the strategic challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Because all these discussions we have had is most of these food safety guidelines, food safety standards are actually generated during these meetings of Codex. So now that the pandemic is here, most of the consequences we have seen is cancellations of meetings, which was scheduled for right from January to now. There is no physical meeting. So quite a number of committees could not meet and they were canceled. So we have now have to go back to the drawing board, which remote working or video conferencing, the way we are now doing it. So the current challenges facing Codex may seem overwhelming, and it presents also some opportunities for strategic reassessment of meeting structures, the process against backgrounds of the significant technologies advances, particularly virtual conferencing. Even in an optimistic scenario, the current pandemic is likely to present considerable challenges for Codex. This includes how to ensure that the momentum of work across committees is maintained against these significant disruptions or cancellations, the constraints of physical participation in future meetings because of budgetary and other limitations, including likelihood of border restrictions, because many countries are under lockdown. Their planes have been, travel has been canceled. So actually we are in a very unique time. How to ensure that the new modes of working now, the video conferencing, we are used to physical meeting where consensus building is done through talking, direct one-to-one. But now we are working through video conferencing. So how do we build consensus? How do we have some sense of inclusiveness, transparency, and also collaboration? However, there is some new work which is being done led by New Zealand, whereby we are exploring ways of working through correspondences. And I think that one will be under the Committee on General Principles. So this work actually, with this phase of the pandemic, is actually given impetus and the urgency and the need to really put it in the principle that it is possible to work through correspondence and also attain the same results. However, we are just getting used to this new normal. I'm actually very proud to see CC Africa has adapted very fast the new way of the new normal way of online working. We are celebrating the World Food Safety Day online. And I think many countries have actually participated more than the previous year, thanks to COVID-19, because now it has made sense that we really need to get our food safe. We are also working on online issues at Codex Secretariats had offered training, online trainings, which so many countries are now applying and benefiting. So far, Uganda, Kenya, Sierra Leone have been trained on these web tools, which will enhance effective participation. So you can see that despite the challenge, we have innovative ways of progressing work, which I think that will be good. On matters, movement of goods, in terms of be it food, be it what we are seeing now, the masks. It is true that it appears that the new way of life has reduced physical contact, and it may be here for long. So it has become so necessary to adopt continental and regional collaborative trade policies, mechanisms, one of which is actually Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This agreement actually is an encompassing agreement that seeks to integrate the entire African trade and investment space under Article 6 of that agreement, it provides that the agreement will cover trade in goods, services, investment, intellectual property rights, and policies. This is aiming to bring together entire 54 states of African continent. Africa has always been exporters of food, and with the advent of this COVID-19, the whole world was shut down. So we realized that we need to move food intra-Africa countries rather than depend on the external market. So it is believed that the impact under this COVID-19 in our African economies is very great. And Africa now has to see to it that and probably fast track the implementation of this continental free trade area, because this is where it lies their hope. Luckily enough, after this pandemic came in, the heads of state actually agreed to have some short-term remedies and establish trade corridors which enable the transit of disease control, prevention, which is essential goods, which was specifically to address the health issues, whereby they hit the issues of movement of masks, movement of drugs, and also the detergents, or the disinfectants, which was being used as we combated this pandemic. Over and above, I think there is need now to look into intra-African trade with a very strong approach, because that is where now we are going to recoup our economy to move the momentum up, because we need to increase the trade in the intra-trade. Luckily enough, we have economic blocks which merges. Before this agreement is being actualized, already there exist some structures through the economic blocks, whereby there are still movement of goods. So I think
well, Dr. Barithim, you have a minute to wrap up on this, please.
Thank you so much. I think the advent of, or the implementation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area will actually be the answer to our challenges which we are facing with this COVID-19. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening.
All right, we'll go straight and Dr. Marcus Lip, who is Head Food Safety and Quality Unit of the FAO in Rome, Italy, based there, is going to speak on science and innovation at the Service of Food Safety Preparedness and Early Response to Emergencies. And Dr. Lip, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. And welcome from Rome, everybody. It's my distinct pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, honorable ministers, excellencies, colleagues. It has been a very impressive and fantastic webinar so far. And of course, my challenge as the last speaker is to come up with anything that has not been said as of now. And so I will try to add some perspectives there. Maybe let me start with an overarching comment. So it is, in terms of crises, it is always important to remember, what do we know? What do we understand? And COVID-19 is not a foodborne illness. I think it's important to remember that. It is important to keep that in mind. It may impact food security. It may lead to disruption of supply chains, and we had this discussed. This is all true, and it's devastating. But it is not a disease that can be easily picked up or can be picked up through food consumption. I think it's very, very critical to remember that, because it also then will highlight to what do we need to do to manage that illness. And first of all, the illness, and then we can manage the fallout of that. And this is, of course, basic food hygiene. So washing hands, washing utensils. We had this was already brought up by several speakers. So let's keep this in our mind. Let's keep reminding us on what do we know works, what do we know we have to do. Focus on that. It will help us. Now, the good part about all of that, particular good part, quote unquote, when we talk about food safety, is that these very measures that I just described, washing hands, washing utensils, keeping everything clean, raw meat not together with vegetables, and so on, these are critical to avoid a whole slew of foodborne illnesses. Many, 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 many foodborne illnesses will be avoided by keeping to those basic measures. This is a positive side effect of the whole COVID-19 crisis, if one can say it has a positive side effect. It's the highlighting of what works in food safety. What can we all do to keep our food safe? Everybody can do that, washing hands. Every manufacturer needs to do that. Every processor in the logistics, when food is touched, when food is prepared, when food is served. We all need to pay very close attention to that. But your question was science and innovation. So it is science that leads us to those conclusions that how does COVID-19, if at all, impacts food safety? And it is science that teaches us that as of today, there is no indication that COVID-19 has ever been transmitted through food. So hence, COVID-19 is not a foodborne illness. It is not possible to pick it up through food. That's the science background. Now, science evolves, and as it evolves, we will keep, of course, updating our messages as necessary. But that's the background of science. So science can give us a guiding light, if you want, that allow us to make decisions on facts, to base our decisions on a factual basis, to base it on risk, and previous speakers have alluded to that, to have a way to talk about risks, to understand risks, to rank risks, and then to make decisions that will help us as consumers or a country, a population, a school, in the best way possible to mitigate any kind of food risks and foodborne hazards that are relevant to that group of people. And maybe to make it a little bit more real and concrete, we have recently worked with the World Food Program, and I'm not sure whether my colleague is still on the call, but where we have the World Food Program has us approached because there was a contamination issue in some food in Uganda where people turned out sick. And so the World Food Program found out that there was a contamination with a wheat called Turum, and that Turum seeds were contaminating the food. And so WFP came to FAO and WHO together to the Joint Risk Assessment Program to ask us, can you please help us understand the science? How toxic is that? What can we do? What is a safe level? What is a risk level? And we developed these guidance to them. It will be published very soon. There's already some summary report out there if people are interested. That will give the scientific understanding on what is a level in these Datura seeds, in let's say soybean or sorghum, that is safe for people, that is safe for children, that it does not cause any problems. So these are scientific discussions, and there's a lot of literature that needs to be reviewed, and some modeling needs to be done, that volunteer scientific experts that work with WHO and FAO are contributing to our efforts. We invite them, they are not paid by us, they deliver their services for free, and they help us understand how the science can lead to safer food, can lead to food safety standards, can lead to international standards that allows trade of safe food. And this, of course, is the whole principle of the Codex Alimentarius commissions that Kimutai already made reference to. So I'll stop there. This is the role of science, how we see it, and science and innovation goes hand in hand. There's always progress, and we need to keep a tab on what the latest findings are to deliver to our customers, to governments. FAO as well as WHO are the members are governments, and subsequently to all consumers, the best science that we can find. So thank you.
Well, this really opens up the discussion for all of us. Already I can see the webinar chat with a lot of questions being asked of Ghana's FDA, and I've seen Mr. Kofi Esel also trying to complement a lot of the responses with his comment as well. We've had a lot of the panelists joining us, or interested parties as well, from Tenu Abdulam, who kept asking critical questions about and also contributions about why it is essential to think together as a globe, because it looks like we're on two halves, what is being done rightly and what is not being done well or correctly, and that is why we're here. I would open up before we wrap up by the next, I would say the next 20 minutes for some 10 minutes of questions from any of us based on the presentations so far. I don't know whether the Minister Deputy for Health is still here, but if any of you want to leave before the time, you're still allowed. But please, questions are allowed. Just mention your name and then you ask critical questions. And then we'll have the responses from those who need to respond, the responders. So this is an open floor, please. Any question on any of the presentation, the market sanitation, the actions being taken by Ghana's FDA, the international angle from Dr. Lip, looking at the African perspective from our good doctor from Kenya.
And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let you know that there are already several hands that are raised with people who want to ask questions or comments.
Okay. Okay, I can't see them in picture. If they are on the chat, maybe based on the hands that have been raised, please go ahead. Who do I have as first willing to ask a question?
Let me help you. We have Akim.
Okay, Akim, please, what's your question, please?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Hakim Fumbiro. I work at Uganda National Bureau of Standards in Uganda. I'm glad to be here to share experiences from this part of the world. I'm majorly interested in the issue of the markets. We have seen difficulties, for example, in Uganda in terms of one, keeping the social distance, and two, the discipline in terms of touching one vegetable, you go to another vegetable, and that discipline still erodes the general public. I think it is a critical moment to keep on emphasizing the need for innovative ways of ensuring that people are able to respect and see the danger in terms of handling of the food and touching of the food, which exposes even the issues of COVID-19 further. So my major question is around markets, considering that majority of the people in Africa actually buy their food from the open stall markets that we find in many parts of Africa. So I would just like to share more experiences on how they have managed to actually bring it out clearly to the buyers, so that they can actually be able to get on board very fast and be able to avoid the use of hands and related facilities during the purchasing of food products. Thank you very much.
Can I have Mr. Kofi Esel, who works with Ghana's FDA, even though directly doesn't work with the market, because you're supposed to ensure that even the goods of the market are safe. How do you do that? Because what we see in Accra and the rest of Ghana is not the best.
Well, thank you very much, Roland. I think you'll recall the presentation from the environmental health officer and then the market queen. These are ongoing activities prior to the onset of the COVID-19. What we need to do is to intensify our collaboration and an effort to make sure that, one, the markets are clean. Already we started a clean market project some time ago, which we piloted it's been very successful, and we need to expand it and then to other places. Over 700 markets in Ghana. It's not a joke, and we will try as much as possible to pursue just that. Our market surveillance activity is still ongoing. Where we do the sampling and testing. Not so long ago, you heard about the tomato paste, some samples of variants of tomato paste or brands that we asked to be recalled as a result of testing that proved that there were other additives that they have, added to the product, which puts them outside the class we call tomato paste into something we call tomato mix now. And so these are some of the things that we are doing. The COVID-19 has not stopped us. I just want to reiterate that. It has not stopped us completely from doing what we need to do, because we have a fundamental responsibility to ensure the safety of the Ghanaian consumer, and we'll still pursue that. Just that we are adopting other strategies, technologies, and other things that will help us achieve the same goals. So we are still on the issues.
Mm. Thank you there. There's a question from one of our respective audiences that join us from the public. And the question is to Paulina. How is the collaboration with the FDA with regards to education on training in the market, since both of you do education, so that nobody is doing any parallel kind of action? Is Paulina still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes,
Yes,
you are doing education. The FDA is also doing education.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
because from the FDA, we together did the food safety policy, and then there are clear-cut guidelines for each party to operate. We are focusing on the markets and then the agro-processing sites, so we don't get into what the FDA does. So for us, it's more like the regular extension on handling at that level, but they will go into the composition, etc. of the food. I told you we don't even have the clout to do certain things. You go to the market, it's a big space, but there are infrastructural issues. We don't have control over these. So we linked up with local governments so we could review the food safety guidelines. So then it goes to all the assemblies, because without that, you cannot enforce anything. You should have the do's and don'ts, and then if somebody violates, based on that, you can hold the accountable. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well. Please, anybody want to also complement that by way of some response? Markets in Africa usually are crowded. Of course, we would want to get to the point where maybe what you see in the Middle East or that's closer, or Europe will be some of the best places where we have food that is wrapped, etc. But that's not the phenomenon you find in Africa. How can we improve that? Dr. Lip, you want to give me a hand on that?
Yeah, you're asking the $50 million question.
$50 million. That's a good sum of money.
Or whatever large amount of money you want to use there. It is very, I think there needs to be a concerted effort, and that's easier said than done. But to change food systems, to change structures, societal structures, we all, and I don't want to just say that because it's the Food Safety Day, World Food Safety Day theme, but we all need to work together. It only will work if we have consumers that are being educated, if we have producers that are being educated, if we have vendors that are being educated, if we have a government that puts the suitable policies in plan to ensure that we all are on a path of progress to a better system, to a food system with improved food safety, to a system with improved food security and food availability with the economic opportunities that people need. And this is a process. This is not, there's no quick fix, or at least I do not know a quick fix for that. So I think it's a very delicate and it's a very complicated topic, of course, but we can all do simple steps, and we can all, and if all of us do enough of the simple steps, this future will actually become reality. Not sure whether that helped you, but it's my best effort.
May I make a contribution?
Okay. Yes, please, Dr. Mr. Roderick, your full name, please.
Yeah, Daddy Ajay. Daddy Ajay. Yeah, Daddy Ajay.
Daddy Ajay. Okay.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much.
And you are with FDA Ghana, right?
I'm with FDA Ghana, yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to continue from where Dr. Marcus left of the $50 million question. Actually, there are some moves that the Chief Executive Food and Drugs Authority has made. And I agree with what Dr. Marcus said, the issue of working together. So ourselves and local government, we started some work, that was December. Unfortunately, COVID showed its face. But what we started doing was to link up with the local government in some joint inspections with a common checklist to look at areas where we could work together. And we have actually even approached FAO Ghana, and they are considering it because it's one of the things that we think that we can't get together and work with the market queens. So it's good to have Madame over there. The idea to work with the market queens, work with all those who impact on food safety. The idea is that we want to try and put a system in place to look at products from farm to fork. And so if these things are put together and they gel, we have some documents that we have discussed, and the discussion is still ongoing. We are hoping that the COVID would loosen itself a bit because it means you have to gather to share some of the ideas, or at least for now we'll be doing it by Zoom, or you sit at your side and then we share the idea. But it's all supposed to come down to the level where it will be looking at food, the transportation, how it gets into the market, how it is stored, up to retail practices. So there is something that has started, and we believe that with time it will gather the impact. Thank you.
There's a. Is there any question somebody wants to ask, or any of our panelists want to ask each other? So that we all keep our discussions.
Mr. Chair,
yes, please.
I think we have a few hands. Maybe you can give the opportunity to one or two to ask questions. I have Swala Mohammed and Chek Njai.
Okay, great. So I'll start with Mr. Swala Mohammed before I go to Chek Njai. Just tell us where you are calling from or you have joined from. I think it will help us. Mr. Mohammed.
I'm calling.
Swala?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead.
I'm calling from Ashanti region, Kumasi.
In Ghana?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead. In relation to food safety and the discussions we've had.
Okay. With the discussions, I was having a little bit problem with my network, so it seems I didn't get it well. But I'm trying to jot certain things down before I get.
Okay. So all our conversations have focused on the way we keep food safe before we consume. And I believe you're an ordinary Ghanaian, so you would have a lot of questions about how your food is kept, the way they are before you get to purchase and consume. All right, so you ready yourself? I'll go to Mr. Njai. Mr. Njai? Mr. Njai? Okay, we don't seem to have Mr. Njai responding adequately. Lamins sign. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, please. Is that Mr. Check Njai?
Yes, so much,
okay.
And good everyone. All protocol observed. So I am Sheikh Njai. I used to be a former FAO staff 10 years ago.
Great.
Retired from there and then set up 2 NGOs and one for skill development. And I'm still concerned with food safety. It is, as we said, it is everybody's concern and nobody's responsibility. I've learned some of the mottos we have been advocating for the last 2 decades. And I'm glad I've been able to join this Food Safety Day through my former office. And I'm glad to see that things are shaping up and people are coming up with very good ideas when it comes to this African terrain, which is really big problem and which affects most of the health of the people. I'm very glad when that lady from the market said, the people who will come on to select the food, they need to pick it up. They will give them stick or pointers, but that is yet to come. But really coming to the subject, I just want governments to really focus on few of the things we have observed these days. We need to find substitutes for imported products. As you know, this local lockdown has not permitted us to have access to those things which we are used to. That's one. We need to promote local productions to meet future demand because this thing came as a surprise to all of us. Nobody was ready. We were called from everywhere. Sheikh, do you have any paper regarding packaging as a way of, as a vector of contamination? I said, so far, nothing has been done. Because some of the packaging for conditioning, they are porous. And if the person is contaminated, definitely this conditioned atmosphere will get into the package. And I really don't know how long the virus can survive in this aerated package, in this confined environment. So we need to develop technical guidance and tools to assist the agri-food producers. And they should be simple and accessible to everyone, like we have double guidelines for people. I have heard something very important today, and people are realizing it. People are concerned about nutrition only when they are sick. When you go to the market, we need to educate the sellers or the marketers about the food safety. Simple videos, simple, I see on the TVs, a lot of things, but simple videos explaining to them the value of the safety of the food they sell. I saw some people, they said the meat has nothing, and they can use any other products to freshen it. And they don't know the toxicity of that. On top of all these, you all remembered a few days ago, there was a big crowd of locusts eating the East African countries have produced. We need to be prepared for the little production we have when we are locked up. Because when you lock up somebody, well, you should give him something to eat and something to survive on. So after that, I think as a final point, I would like every country to have a national security plan. And that plan should be dealt with or should be done in collaboration with the private sector. These are few of the points which really came to my mind when I heard these speeches from my former colleagues, which I really appreciate. And I will look forward to getting them and trying to see how I can disseminate them and share the little we have in this sub-region of French West Africa. Thank you so much. And congratulations for well done.
Shukran. Thank you. Thank you. Any other question before we go to our main organizers for the wrap-up comments? I have Dr. Ouattara, you wanted to say something?
No, I just wanted to let you know that we have another hand that is raised, is a news, ACPABI.
ACPABI, okay. Pabi, Mr. ACPABI? Or Is there a woman? Hello, Pabi.
Akpabi.
Akpabi. Please go. Please. Ah. Okay. Please go ahead.
Please unmute your microphone.
Yes. Unmute your microphone. Okay. Akpabi.
All right. We cannot hear.
Okay, hello.
Yes, please. Is that
right?
Is that Mr. Pabi or Edward Acha?
This is Edward.
Edward Acha here. Thank you.
Edward Acha. Yes, please.
Yes,
tell us who you
Roland,
are.
my compliment goes to all the speakers.
Thank you.
And my concern, probably if the Director for Sanitation is around, maybe my concern would go to him. He mentioned rightly that in the midst of the COVID-19, there was a mass disinfection exercise in the market. Much as I would want to commend him and his agency for that wonderful work, I have a little bit of a concern in my local market where I go and shop. I realized that after the disinfection exercise, until now the disinfection was done is still effective. I compared that with a hospital setting where disinfection is done once and then it is never repeated for a very long time. And I think in that sense, I have been to the market several times and I see a lot of infestation by mice, by several insects and other things, especially for around the milling machine areas. Because, as we know, the environment of the market, we have a lot of food residues, all over, which is a feeding ground for this pest. My concern is, how soon are we going to see a mass pest control exercise or pest infestation at the market? I think, to me, that is very, very paramount. And if the Director for Sanitation is around, maybe he can give us their plan, especially for disinfestation process at the market. Thank you.
Well, very, very, very important question. And Edward Acha is speaking from Ghana. So we had a wider what they call disinfection as well as subsequent fumigation in the markets. And it's important that we also tackle that as well. Our sanitation.
Hello, Roland. Yeah, Roland. Yeah, yes, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks for the question. This falls within the purview of Ministry of Local Governments. I'll throw it across, and particularly within the jurisdiction of the various metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. So I'll draw the attention. Let's also remember that food safety, as our theme for this year, it's everyone's business. So we want to see more of those. You can easily walk to any of the municipal assemblies to complain about some of these things. And I think when you put pressure, surely they will be able to quickly resolve some of these things. I agree with you. What we should have done beyond the disinfection is what we technically call fumigation, where you target rodents, pests, and then vectors within the market. And I can assure you, some markets regularly do that. Some of the major markets have schedules that they do this often, but most of the markets don't do that. And the other side is the public health hazards that some of these things cause. I agree with you perfectly. I'll put it across to my colleagues in the Ministry of Local Government.
Well, thank you very much. It looks like Dr. Ouattara, I have to now revert to you. The time you gave me, I've exceeded it by 3 minutes. So I look forward to you giving me a sense of direction. What do I do? Can I conclude now?
Oh, absolutely. But before you conclude, I just want to take the opportunity to say a big thank you to all the panelists who have kindly accepted to be part of this webinar. And I would like also to thank you, Roland, for your time and your commitment to support. So I think it was a very good event, and we have got a lot of participation, a lot of discussion in the chat room. So there have been several questions that have not been answered. So we will collect all the questions and get the answer and share to the participants. So this is what I wanted quickly to say, and then I would like to turn it over to you now for the conclusion. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well. We're told that the CEO of the Food and Drugs Authority of Ghana joined. Is she around, Doc? Hello, Doc. Okay. So maybe I can close the event now, but I have to say, by way of closing remarks, I want to thank all of you, especially our panelists and then our keynote speakers, those who give us the initial addresses. Dr. Abebe Gabriel, the ADG FAO, we all do know him very well, also with the Regional Office for Africa, doing great work. Dr. Nima Kimambo, repping right here in Ghana, the WHO, and doing great work as well. Alicia De Caterina, the Deputy Country Director, Ghana, for the World Food Program. And then also having Mrs. Seneake deputizing for Dr. Dakun of the Food and Drugs Authority of Ghana. We had some great speakers, and their statements will be very insightful. We don't have to forget our key ministers and their representatives. Honorable Dr. Nura from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. He acts as a Minister of State there. Dr. Okoboye also deputized for his minister as a deputy minister, and we thank him as well. But for all those technocrats, key scientists who are working, Kofi Esel of Food and Drugs Authority Ghana, I know you very well as well. Mrs. Paulina Adi, you working as a director at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, we also say thank you. And for those who have been joining us from around the world, Dr. Maritime from Kenya, thank you very much for your insightful contribution. And from Rome, very close to the Pope, and I'm sure that you had his picture around you, Dr. Marcus Lip, the head Food Safety and Quality Unit, the FAO. We have to say all this has been made successful and put together by the Accra or Africa office. And Dr. Blaise Ouattara has been leading this, supported by Mr. David Youngs, and they had all come together to do the great pre-public education and the engagement for all of us to be able to do this. And we say that thank you to all. We're hoping that the next time we're all called upon, we will contribute meaningfully for a very good session. We're in COVID, but we should know that we have to help everybody to be able to respect the protocols. I say respect because once we disrespect the protocols, it means that we put not only ourselves, but everybody who is around us at risk. But I'll have to say thank you to all of you, especially Na Afrawa Nijan, who is the president for the Greater Accra Market Women's Association of Ghana. I have to say bye-bye, and I leave the convenience of this meeting to end the meeting. All of you, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Roland, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Dr.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having you.
Thank you very much for including the market women. Such
Thank you.
Targets.
Thank you. Okay, I can leave the meeting now. Just good work. God bless you. Thank you so much for granting me permission to use your office.